Ladies and gentlemen, our next panel will focus on the emerging opportunity landscape, and they will give us a sectorial view across key industries like BFSI, manufacturing, life sciences, healthcare, telecom, and technology sectors. I'd like to invite to the stage our session chair, Mr. Kiran Cherakuri, Vice President, HISIA, and CEO, Tech Era. He doesn't need an introduction, but I'll still go through it. Kiran is the founder and CEO of Tech Era, an IT services, learning and advisory services company with a presence in India and the US. He comes with 28 years of IT experience and has earlier worked with Tech Mahindra as VP and Group Head for IT infrastructure, cloud services business across Europe, Asia, Asia Pacific, Middle East, and India regions. Welcome, Kiran. And I'm going to request our panelists to join us. The first panelist who will join us virtually is Mr. Shashi Reddy. Do we have him online? Yeah. Mr. Shashi Reddy is VP Engineering Center Head Hyderabad at Qualcomm Private Limited. He's responsible for setting up and heading the wireless design team in India for Qualcomm and has built a team of 3,000 plus to work on development and validation of modem and connectivity software, multimedia software, and platform software. He is responsible for managing multiple strategic technology efforts and end-to-end product support. A quick check. Do we have Shashi Reddy online? Can you hear us?
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you see me?
We can't see you yet, but we can hear you.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. And,
good afternoon. We'll probably have a visual very soon. I'd like to move on and invite, yeah, we see you now. Welcome, sir. I'd now like to invite Mr. Krishnamurthy Vura, Executive Vice President and Global Head of ADM Practice at Capgemini Technology Service India Private Limited, over 28 years of experience in providing leadership in IT industry with a proven track record of delivery management, establishing and running large programs for global clients that delivered significant economic value. He's also demonstrated proven accomplishments in competency and capability development. Mr. Krishnamurthy Vura.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you can hear me and see me as well.
We can hear you. Yes, now we see you as well. And joining us on stage, we have Mr. Venugopal Reddy Kandamala. Can I request Mr. Venugopal, Senior Vice President, Global Head, Healthcare, Life Science, and at Tech Mahindra to join us on stage. He manages a multi-dimensional portfolio that includes service delivery, business strategy, client relationships, and operational excellence. And joining Kiran and Venugopal Reddy on stage is Ms. Anuradha, Executive Partner, Client Services Leader, IBM. A global executive and a passionate technologist and business leader, she's focused on complex enterprise transformation, innovation, and accelerating business outcomes for clients, for products and services segments. So this is going to be an interesting mix of in-person and online conversations. Over to you, Kiran.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think it's very tough to actually handle a panel soon after the lunch. So Srini did it pretty well. So I think everyone is charged up, but lower your expectations. Right? Srini is a tall guy. He can handle things. So now you have a session chair, he's a shorter guy, right? So I think keep your expectations there. So Srini talked about nuances of operations, the transformation which has happened in operations across the IT sector. Now we're talking about the emerging opportunity landscape. And then before I get to the panel, so a little bit of context setting. So since morning, we're talking about one single word, right? So that's dramatic acceleration in the digitization across the world. That's one single likely primary reason why technology-driven companies are now leading the path. And then they are on a faster recovery globally. So NASSCOM survey has shown that 65% of the market cap gainers during the pandemic are the technology natives and then digital reinventors, right? So, including Qualcomm, IBM, a good number of companies whose market cap gains which has happened. Probably, I think, there is an expectation from the investing world that like they're going to catch on this digital acceleration, right? So, a little bit about the industry verticals. Like I said in the morning that like not all have impacted similarly. So there are certain verticals have been impacted positively, and then some of the sectors have been impacted either negatively or neutrally. So high-tech, telecom, life sciences, medical devices, healthcare, especially the provider segment, consumer retail, and media, all of them put together account for 30% of the worldwide IT spend, the technology spend, right? They are all on a faster recovery. So somewhere around anywhere between 2% to 5% on overall global technology spend, okay, which is going to grow in these sectors, right? So banking, healthcare, logistics, utilities, which account for 40% of the technology spend, which probably would be on a flatter growth. So I'm only talking about the immediate future, 1 year period, basically. Banking, healthcare, logistics, and utilities, right? So, which is a 40% spend, which is on a flatter growth. Aero, defense, heavy engineering, airlines, hospitality, and leisure. So these are the most impacted verticals. They have posted actually a lot of negative growth in the year 2019, but 2020 and 21, so it looks like they're going to be posting anywhere between -2% to -8% in terms of the overall technology spend that is going to happen in these sectors. So today we have a great panel out here who are representing BFSI, technology, manufacturing, and life sciences and healthcare. So we pretty much covered all important sectors. And so it's important as an industry, and especially more important it is for the emerging companies or small and medium enterprises to understand which are the sweet spots, which verticals are growing, what part of those verticals are growing, right? And what are the spend areas, the priority projects, the technology stacks, so that like they will be able to reorganize their portfolio, reprioritize their offerings, and then they will be able to embark on newer delivery models and commercial structures to capture on this opportunity. So given this context, so we do have a very eminent panel. So let me first go with the lady, Anuradha from IBM, so who's going to represent the manufacturing. So Anu, the pandemic has affected different segments differently. So within manufacturing, there are several micro verticals. So they have been actually impacted differently. But however, I think one uniform theme which I have seen across manufacturing is 76% of the manufacturing executives, CIOs, are saying that like they are increasing their investments in digital initiatives. And at least they have planned a pilot, okay, and to implement some specific technologies which they are calling it as Industry 4.0. So the areas of investments are primarily leveraging sensors, leveraging ML algorithms to deploy in production line, predict, prevent, even prefix some of the challenges which they are going to occur, right? So another example is also talking about vision systems and then data analytics to improve on the quality of the products and parts. So you've been in manufacturing vertical for some time. So what is your outlook of demand situation? Which micro verticals you see that they are actually positively impacted, which are negatively impacted? And there are two questions here I'm asking simultaneously so that like you can go 4-5 minutes at a stretch, right? And what are the technologies, what are the solutions which are in demand in manufacturing sector? So you could actually throw some light on core manufacturing. Yeah, even high tech also part of it, but I think I would want you to actually throw more light on core manufacturing and industrial. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, manufacturing. Am I audible? Yeah. So manufacturing is a large vertical in that way, right? It covers a wider segment. Some of the companies also include high tech into it, core manufacturing, industrial manufacturing. Then we also have chemical industrial products. We also have aerospace, automobiles. So in that way, it's a large segment. And what we saw in the last 1 year is that it has impacted in a different way in different companies, right? As we see, we've seen that in companies which make medical equipment, they've really seen a huge demand. Companies which are building maybe aerospace area, aircrafts or automotives, there they have seen a real steep downturn, right? So it's a mixed bag in that way. So overall, what we've seen is that there has not been a big jump in the growth last year in this vertical. The outlook, the demand pattern this year is very positive, but they claim to, actually all the gardeners and the foresters of the world say that around 3 to 5% growth is what is being anticipated in this segment. And definitely, as you rightly said, digital initiatives, digitization is very, very key. And operational agility is something which every manufacturing company has to build in, or else they're not going to sustain, right? Because of the costs which they are seeing, right? So in that way, if you look at the technology solutions, the key thing is the supply chain itself. How do I optimize my supply chain, first of all? How do I ensure that it is intelligent, right? So there are a lot of companies actually working on optimizing their supply chain in terms of the planning itself, first of all. How do I bring in intelligence into the planning? What is the demand pattern? Where are the markets where I should be focusing on? How do I capture that particular segment, right? So the planning part itself of the supply chain getting automated. The second part is the visibility of the supply chain. How do I automate that? Right from the order, customer, ordering, right up to the fulfillment part. How do I automate the whole thing? And how do I get a visibility of where that particular equipment is, right? In fact, people are using blockchain as well, for this. Many of the companies are looking at using IoT, right? They're using AI, IoT, cloud across each of these supply chain areas. And then the final fundamental part is the asset itself. How can I actually make it more intelligent? So IoT is also coming there, where we have sensors getting built into the asset itself, so that you're able to understand health of that asset real time, right? So in that way, the supply chain automation is one key technology area where there's a lot of focus. I would say 60-70% of the industry is focusing on the supply chain automation. The second part is the whole customer service and support also has changed, right? It's all virtual now. And in fact, there is a lot of convergence of industries here. So a lot of manufacturing clients are going towards e-commerce, looking at having CRM systems. In fact, the pandemic has helped the manufacturing clients, manufacturing companies to actually go towards a B2C rather than B2B. So B2C is evolving, where they're selling directly to the clients, because now they don't need somebody in between. So the pricing is becoming competitive because of that. So they are implementing the CRM systems, a platform which will actually help. So that's the second technology area which can be focused on. The third one is on the whole manufacturing, the core manufacturing itself. How do I build intelligence there? Smart manufacturing is picking up a lot. In terms of the shop floor itself, how do I automate? How do I bring in IoTs there? How am I able to look at my material which is required? In fact, it is said even 1 day of loss of manufacturing, there's $100,000 loss, right? So how do I optimize so that my manufacturing goes on continuously, right? So So that is the third element, I would say, which is really picking up. And the fourth one, which I would say in the customer support area again, is AR, VR itself, augmented reality and virtual reality. So where earlier the technical support guy used to go there, go to the client premises and do the troubleshooting. But now with the pandemic, it's not possible. So it is more of using these techniques to get some of the initial troubleshooting done by the customer itself and get the data from there, right, and then analyze these. So these are some of the areas I see where we're seeing opportunities, where we need technology focus, and where no, there's a lot of no, growth, I would say, in the segment.
Okay. Thanks. I think that point of, so you're saying that like what size of manufacturing companies are actually tending to directly go to B2C instead of B2B? Is there any specific size of the manufacturing companies, or is it that like across you see this trend across the sector?
I think it is across, because with the supply chain becoming automated, right? In fact, small and medium segment, it's more easier for them, right, to directly sell to the clients, so that they're saving on the cost. So I would say it is more beneficial for the small and medium segments to go B2C rather than look at B2B, right? While, yeah, they may be having partners. So the other thing which I've seen also is partnerships. It's helping them, right, expand their ecosystem. So I would say it's beneficial for all, but more for the small and medium segments.
Thanks, Anu. I'll come back to you. The next, let me actually ask a question virtually. Krishna, you're there, right? Am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, okay. So I think you represent the BFSI vertical. I think this has the lion's share of the overall IT sector, right? So the economic consequences which BFSI has put through is nothing compared to the global financial crisis of 2008. So that way, probably you're lesser impacted as compared to the past. But it is still notable, right? So the new normal is expected to shape global banking industry on several dimensions. There are changes, right? Ushering into the new competitive landscape, promoting new way of innovation, right? Accelerating digital almost to increase the reach of whether it is banking or capital markets or insurance, so any segment for that matter, right? So BFSI is in forefront of actually adapting to the digitalization. So how do you see the tech spending across micro verticals of BFSI? That's question number one. And same, what technologies, solutions are in demand in these verticals? That's the second question. You can go for 4-5 minutes, Krishna.
Thank you, Kiran. I think good question. I think we all believe and understand that COVID-19 was a performance catalyst for many organizations, right? And it has increased, and even in the BFSI segment as well. I think the entire segment has taken a relook at as to how they need to spend going forward. So they've increased digital spend to build an agile, flexible, scalable, most importantly, platform-based operating model, right? Which will basically fuel them the road to recovery, for the banks and the insurances, right? And if you look at the last 1 year, the growth challenges were amplified by, falling in the operating incomes, right? But then one most important thing that you need to notice in the BFS segment is that the banks and the insurance companies have not stopped making their investments in IT, and they are making it in such a way that it becomes a major differentiator as they go forward into the later years, 21, 22, and so on and so forth. And this is not a phenomenon just happening at the larger banks, but this is also a phenomenon that is happening at the regional banks and credit unions of the world as well. They were slightly behind in terms of the digital curve adoption. but I think they are accelerating, their way as well onto the digital side as well, right? But however, what is most important is that how the BFSI clients are finally balancing their run, manage, and change initiatives to ensure that they have higher returns from their IT investments and manage uncertainty. I think we have to be ready to manage uncertainty for some more period of time. Pandemic is not gone anywhere. It is still there, and it is bringing in different set of complexities that we thought once the vaccines come, we will see some kind of a relief, but then there are different type of complexities that are coming up today, right? So what technologies are these clients, BFSI clients, are using? I think cloud is big in terms of driving their transformation, right? They want to basically shut down their legacy IT infrastructure and then because legacy IT infrastructure is a profit eroding bottom line burden for banks and insurance firms. So they're doing that. So migrating to cloud is an important place that they're accelerating. The next one is the APIs, right? Proliferation of APIs which is going to boost adoption of what I earlier talked about is banking operating models, right? New operating models, banking as a service, right? If you recall, or if any of you have read the Capgemini's retail banking report for last year, 60% of the bank executives plan to scale their API infrastructure during 2021 and 2022, right? And the third area where you would also see is artificial intelligence, right? Again, where are we going to use artificial intelligence? Are we going to look for new ways to expand my market? Are we going to use, how do I get more products sold to the client? I think AI is being put to use in a very in a slightly different area. In the sense, we have heard of fintechs, we have heard of insurtechs, right? Now we have regulatory tech, right? RegTech. So the banks are now looking at how do I ensure compliances by making sure that I use AI and I process data in a consistent manner and spot any regulatory deviations that could occur within the industry. It could be banking or it could be insurance. Both are heavily regulated industries, as you guys know, right? So those are some of the areas that from a technology point of view, I think you would see becoming very important and critical for the industry. Now, again, you also talked about what kind of solutions, right? I already gave you a brief about banking as a service, right? I think, banking as a service is going to become important because even in the earlier session, or even Anuradha talked about how the sectorial boundaries are getting blurred, right? And if you have to kind of ensure that I'm able to support across industry activities from BFSI, I think adoption of banking as a service kind of platforms with APIs, consumable APIs, third-party integrations become very, very critical there. And banks are realizing that this kind of growth is important for them, and hence they're pushing. The second solution that I would like to kind of talk about is with advent of digital and a lot of data becoming available, hyper-personalization, right? Today, if you walk into a bank, you have 2 or 3 sectors, right? Private banking, there may be 2 or 3 categories within that, and then the regular banking, you would have 2, 3 categories within that. But I think banks are looking at how do I hyper personalize so I can hold you back as a customer for long, and not just hold you back as a customer, but how I can cross-sell and upsell a lot of other products as well, right? So those are some of the solutions that banks are looking for very critically in terms of their growth in 2021 and beyond.
Okay. I was also wanting to probably I thought I would hear from you on security perspective as well. So with this hyper personalization and then accelerated digitization, so I think banking is one sector which is very, very sensitive to. So what's your take on the security?
I think security is top on any bank's agenda right now, right? Security both from personal information point of view, security from a banking point of view, security from regulatory aspects of it as well, right? There is that focus has not changed. I think every program that they are digitizing, I think banks are very closely putting a looking glass and making sure that the security aspects of whatever products, whatever platforms that they build, or whatever APIs that they create, they're going to address, because regulatory aspects of banking and the BFSI and the security aspects of BFSI is still going to be very, very top in terms of both spend as well as focus areas.
Thank you, Krishna. Can you spend a moment on insurance? How is it impacted? Because that's an area I think which is believed to be a little bit of a negative impact. I'm not sure what's your take on that.
Banking has been able to survive, though their incomes are lower. Banking is able to kind of survive, and they're basically looking for growth. When it comes to insurance, I think that has become a challenge, right? Insurance is insurance industry, given the pandemic and other stuff, all of us know that there's been a huge impact. What insurance is trying to do is how to, again, personalize the products, bring in the personal experience, reduce their spend on document management. Insurance is all about a lot of document management when it comes to claims and other stuff. How do we automate? How do we, bring in, OCR plus AI kind of technologies, and not just process a document, but get intelligence out of the document so that they're able to process their claims much more easily and more digitally as well. So insurances are focusing more in terms of how they are also looking at customizing their products to the client's needs, and how they can more and more automate their claims process, especially where there is documentation involved.
Yeah, thank you, Krishna. So I'll come back to you. Let me go to Shashi. So Shashi, thanks for actually joining in. So I thought probably I would have 3+1, but I think you ensured that like I have 4+1. So Shashi, Qualcomm is one of the significant market cap gainers along with the other peers in the last few quarters. So which is a great sign of demand revival for your sector. So I'm not sure whether you call yourself as a technology sector or a semi or telecom. So I think all the three that which Qualcomm is being part of. What's your outlook of demand situation in technology spending in telecom as well as technology verticals, right? And what type of services are demand in these sectors? And then what changes are you noticing in terms of the tech stacks being used, right, for these solutions? Over to you.
Thanks. Sure, thanks, Kiran. I think the reason could be multiple for the market cap growing. I don't think it's just maybe the pandemic, but I think the process of digital transformation is, I think, the key area which helps a lot of these technology or telecom wireless companies. I mean, if I look at it, this digital transformation or the buzzword which we are talking about is nothing new. So I think the part of the digital transformation or the concept of that has been there for quite some time. If I remember like 10, 15, 20 years back when we talked about 3G, I remember seeing one of our marketing slide, somebody sitting in a beach under a palm tree with a laptop and stuff like that. I think there's been that discussion, but I don't know how practical was it, and especially in the Indian context, how many of us really go to a beach and work from there. So I think the concept and the things were there for quite some time, and some part of it is also being implemented by maybe more of the senior folks or the executives where they need connect everywhere or they need to be really working from different places, but it was not as much seen to go down to I think every engineer level. So I mean, all said and done, 2000 has been a very difficult year, and it's a black swan, I would say. And if there is any silver clouding there, I think it has given a chance to look back on ourselves, how the organizations, how even individuals need to kind of upgrade ourselves to the technology. I think that realization or that need has come. If I look at it, the big demand in our sector came in because there was a lot of people who upgraded themselves into maybe going from a typical feature phone or low-end smartphones to higher-end smartphones. And then there were adoption of things like, I mean, upgrading your access points at home, getting broadband at home. I mean, then having smart TVs connecting to Netflix and Amazon's. I mean, it's like all the things which you can go and do outside has to be done within the four walls, and how things kind of, I mean, I think thanks to technology, some of it you are able to bring it home, and those are the devices, those are the areas where there was a huge uptick. I think semiconductor business really took off because I think even many of the gurus within semiconductor industries did think there will be a kind of a, uptick in 2021, but nobody had realized that that kind of huge uptick would come. Today, it's come to a point there is a huge demand, I mean, supply demand problem with semiconductor, especially that's causing huge supply issues for from the fabs. I mean, if you look at it, Intel is looking at investing $20 billion in newer fabs, and I think recently TSMC is looking at 100 billion. I mean, they want to push into getting more fabs and more manufacturing capabilities and stuff. So that I think that kind of an uptick has happened, and I think people kind of getting used. I mean, different things. It's entertainment, gaming, remote work. Remote work obviously was very important. I mean, it was not just anymore thing you need when you go home and just check your emails versus doing real serious work, doing compiling, doing I mean, doing execution of the projects and programs, all the things done at home, and also a lot of remote work, health as well, I think has caught up. Those are the things that has really pumped in the demand for some of the wireless products. I mean, that definitely is one of the key things. And as one of the panelists had pointed out, the IoTs is another big area. Either it could be industrial IoTs or commercial IoTs where you have security cameras or things like that, or even your your temperature control devices, temperature checking devices, or airports. I mean, all that had to be kind of relooked at, and how we had to change some of those. I mean, we had to upgrade ourselves. I think that really helped. And also from the business's point of view, a lot of the mid and small didn't think as important to digitize a lot of the processes and a lot of the operations in their field, because they thought it was more of a big boys thing. We don't need to do that. We have a direct customer connect. But when the customers are no more coming out into the street and customers are staying at home, the only way to get connected was to get into the digital bandwagon. I know that there are some winners, some losers there, but I think definitely also has changed the behavior or the behavior and the concept of how do I connect back and how do I be accessible at any given point of time to the customers and consumers. The whole customer experience has also kind of has to be changed, because it's not just anymore a physical thing. So I think those are things which really kind of help a lot of the organizations in this sector. But apart from that, I think it's also a regular, there's a regular technology transition. We were moving from a 4G to a 5G transition. I think that I think every 10 years there is a transition which happens. There's a need. I think you create the bandwidth. You create, like, you build a highway, and how you that highway gets used with that kind of bandwidth. I think different applications, different business models evolve, and they start using that bandwidth. I think similar things will happen on 5G, and I think you can see that. I think this pandemic has speeded the process of using more data. I think that clearly is one of the things. And then as you go higher end, there are also AR and VR for both health and health purposes, for industrial purposes. I think those are also creating a lot of a lot of demand. The other sector which is really caught up was also automotive. Automotive is also kind of going more into digitization. You see more EV or electrical vehicles now, not just the EVs, but also it's more of a digital cockpit now. It's connected. It's a lot of driver assistance into this automotive. A lot of the innovations which we do in smartphones can kind of what you call rework on those and be applicable to automotive as well. So I think those are the trends which kind of really kind of used up an uptick for a lot of semiconductor and technology companies or telecom companies, which really helped because of the whole behavioral and the transformation that was forced upon us in a way, this year. And I think that will continue. I think some of the behaviors we may fall back, but I think a lot of it will continue. Some of it will at least most of it will continue post-pandemic as well, because once you kind of get used to some of that, I think either whether we have entertainment on demand, or gaming, or the work from home might change a little bit, but there will be an opportunity to work. Some folks working from home, some folks working from office. So I think that will continue is what we kind of expect as well.
Okay, thanks, Shashi. That's well elaborate. I'll come back to you for third question. So, Venu, I think you're pretty close to me, but I came all around because your sector is in the most limelight, life sciences and healthcare. So, life sciences, medical devices, healthcare, especially provider. I think these verticals are very less impacted, or positively impacted during the pandemic time. So the demand recovery is much faster as compared to rest of the verticals, right? So it looks like 65% of the EU healthcare providers said that their organizations are increasingly looking at adapting digital ways, even to connect to clinicians as well as the patients. So that's one uniform message which we got. So what's in your take? What is the tech spending driving in your sectors, and what technologies, solutions, and stacks that are in demand at this point of time?
Thanks, Kiran. Broadly, if I look at, there are a lot of trends that existed pre-COVID as well, but COVID basically has accelerated most of those trends. And some trends like telehealth and all, which were there for 20 years, they couldn't make an impact, and they started making an impact within 1 year. Right? So that kind of an acceleration has happened in some areas. So if you look at whether governments like US government spending 18% of GDP on healthcare, or European countries roughly about 8 to 9% of GDP spend on healthcare. Come to Asia Pacific countries like India, we probably spend somewhere 2 to 3%. Irrespective of the spend that you are doing, all countries would have realized one thing, that their health systems are inadequate. That realization hopefully has happened across the world with this event. What that does is it's going to definitely increase some amount of activity in the policy making and trying to make the health systems robust in each of these countries, which essentially means there's going to be a lot of government spending that's going to happen in future. In order to make this. And when the government spending goes up, of course, the private spend is also going to go up. And the other trend that you will see typically is the consumerization of healthcare. A pandemic like this is basically going to heighten the awareness across the board. So we probably have bought more sanitizers in this 1 year than for all of our life, right? So that is the kind of a heightened awareness that would happen. And hence there would be an impact on buying insurances. There would be impact on more wearables and preventive care, wellness, etc. And also there would be a lot of drive towards owning some of these devices and continuous monitoring, etc. that would happen. So these are the pan trends that are going to be happening, and I'm sure, I mean, all the speakers have also mentioned some of these trends are going to be consumerization, user experience, on demand, e-commerce. These are the trends that are going to cut across industries, and healthcare and life sciences is no exception there. And go by subsector by subsector. So taking the hospital industry, the provider industry, they all have taken a hit during the pandemic because most of the elective procedures would have stopped because the hospitals were not running and people would have postponed surgeries because of the fear of acquiring infections, etc. So that way, I think hospitals took an hit, but I think there's a learning for them. So they probably, especially in advanced countries like US, they would have taken learning that hospital industry has ignored the outpatient population or on-demand healthcare for a long, long time. And hence you would have seen the trends like a CVS or a Walgreens or a Walmart's coming up with minute clinics kind of a model. And that trend is going to increase, and consumerization is there to go. And what it has led to is consumption of digital front-end technologies for the hospitals, because they don't want to be seen only in acute care and when you're seriously ill come to us, but they also want you to come to them when you are not so seriously ill also. So which essentially means you should be able to have a mechanism to service that patient population. And hence the consumption of remote monitoring, remote patients, or the telehealth solution, or wellness packages, or post-care packages at home, or elderly care, all of that is going to basically go up going forward, because hospital industry will now focus on this, apart from the minute clinics and other models, etc. So I will see in the productization space, and for a lot of startups are in this space, etc. There's lots of uptick is going to be there for building new technologies, especially cloud native apps, etc. That would happen. Second, we have seen in the medical devices industry again taken a hit because they were not being able to sell imaging equipment or industrialized analyzers to the laboratories, etc. during this period, because nobody was doing a capital investment in this anymore. But post pandemic and some of the trends that were happening earlier in the medical devices industry is miniaturization, instant diagnostics, and bedside diagnostics, and to be able to do remote diagnostics. These are some of the other trends in the medical industry. So the pandemic is only going to advance those things, because imagine like when the COVID test has to be done, the RT-PCR test has to be done, we were saying like the turnaround time is going to be somewhere about 2 to 3 days. And then there's the rapid antibody test that has come in, which we said like, okay, we can get it done in an hour or so. And more diagnostic kits started coming. So the trend is always going to be, can I not have it now? If you are able to diagnose now and you can start the treatment now. So the demand is going to be miniaturization, just-in-time diagnostics or on-demand diagnostics, and hence you will see a lot of consumption of IoT or 5G or any of the ability to use AI and machine learning for processing high amount of data, whether it is images or data, etc., and to be able to give you a diagnostics faster or a predictive diagnostics also. So you would see consumption of those technologies in the devices space. The third one is payer. I think they were lucky this year. Again, lots of consumption has not happened on the premium dollar. I'm sure they would have saved some of money. But would it be the same way for next year when the elective procedures come back, or some of the delayed medical conditions are going to cause more acute care problems? and what would happen to the payer industry, especially in the countries like US, etc. Of course, in governments like UK model, government spends, India model, both private and public spends, not much insurance, etc. But my guess is in different markets, the payers will play out very differently. But one theme that would definitely happen is ability to underwrite differently, because during this COVID period, people would have captured a lot of data, and that should help you underwrite your policies better, and you should be able to focus targeted population with the right kind of a policy. So the whole underwriting will go through a change, and data analytics will be a good consumption area from a payer point of view. And the last one, life sciences customers. I think of all the four, I think life sciences is least impacted. There's tons of money that is being saved because you don't really have to have field representatives going around selling anymore. A lot of that got shut down. And so bottom lines across the board in life sciences companies have improved. And it also provided them an opportunity to come back with newer products now. But where I see lots of opportunity in the life sciences is, especially we don't want to wait for 10 years for a vaccine to come. That is a realization. So everybody would be now questioning, saying that why should the regulatory process take so much time? Are there tools and technologies available to fast track the drug development? And people have proven it in this period of time. Whether it's 100% not, that's a debate for another day. But the pedal is going to be pushed in the direction of, can we come to the market with a faster drug development? So computational drug discovery, AI-driven modeling is going to be the mainstay for drug discovery process. It should at least save off at least 3 to 4 years of time from the overall drug development timelines. Second, do you really need to continue with your medical representative model? Can you actually reach out to your healthcare professionals in a very different way? So digital way of reaching the HCPs is going to be there. Third, investment into education content and right way of actually taking care of the patient. So patient engagement area, etc., is going to be a huge area for investments. And the last one is the whole cycle of regulatory approvals. Are there alternatives? How do you do clinical trials in tomorrow? Can you do virtual trials, such siteless trials? How do you process the entire data in a way that you can shrink the whole clinical trial time period? So I would see equal opportunities both on the technology, also on the domain and process side in the life sciences industry going forward. I'll stop here.
Thank you, Venu. That was very elaborate. In the interest of time, gentlemen, actually, I wanted to ask one uniform question to all of you. So, what are the opportunities for the emerging companies in your respective sectors? So, probably we wouldn't have so much of time, but I think one solution area that is suitable for emerging companies. So I want you to conclude in one sentence. First with Anu.
One sentence. Okay, so I believe customer support and service is one area where manufacturing, small and medium segment companies can focus on, because that's an area where, because of the COVID also, there's a lot of opportunity. So I would say focus on that. Look at how can you make that more customer savvy, more customer experience savvy, and also look at building end-to-end systems right from the order management to the fulfillment, so that the experience is fulfilling for the clients. So that's one area I would say, because you asked me to limit to one. So
thank you, Anu. Anything would you like to add, Krishna, in BFSI?
Yes, I think one important area, usage-based insurance and robo-advisory services, are critical. If you have offerings there, I think there's plenty of play with the insurance firms. Customers are becoming more and more open to making new offers, or rather looking for new offers. People are buying insurance, and insurance firms are eagerly looking at as to how they can do this, robo-advisory and usage-based insurance.
Okay. Thank you, Krishna. Shashi, from your side.
So one, if I have to pick one, I would say, with the advent of 5G and Wi-Fi 6, there's a lot more intelligent, what you call the edge devices which come in. There'll be a lot of data which will be processed there. I think working on those aspects and taking the data generated by these and working over AI models, training these wireless edge, I think those are definitely some of the use cases or